All right. Okay, so we are live. I am Molly Evans. I am a board member with ITSAN, and I get the super awesome privilege of hosting our pretty much monthly webinars. So welcome to anyone and everyone who's going to join us tonight. We also do record these, and so I will make sure that we get our link posted usually within 24 hours on our ITSAN page, on our website at itsan.org, and also on our Facebook and Instagram. So if you can't catch it tonight, you can catch it at any time. So we already have Jessica says, hi guys to everybody. Hi Jess, I hope you're feeling a little better today. I know you are super interested in seeing Nina and Dr. Olivia because Jess has told me she works with you too. So maybe Dr. Olivia can't say that, but I can say it because Jess told me. She told me she'd be here with us tonight.
Yeah.
So tonight we are going to be presenting traditional Chinese medicine, and I will give you a little bit more information about who Dr. Olivia is. And also we have with us one of Dr. Olivia's patients and somebody that I feel like is kind of a celebrity in the TSW life and world. Now, Nina, I know that's probably not where I or you would choose to have our celebrity stardom, but
Yeah.
what I will say is that when we can help each other, support each other in this journey, it's the only gift I feel like we can get through this incredible health crisis that we all have endured. So thank you both for being here. Again, please just remember everybody that ITSAN our goal is to provide more awareness about the side effects of topical steroids, and also to present, because we do not have a cure, we do not have a prescriptive regimen that we know we can all just take and come through this with flying colors. So at ITSAN, we want to present you with as many resources, information, education. Remember, we as ITSAN are not condoning it, we do not support it, we do not purchase it, but we want to help our community through this as much as possible. So any opinions that you hear, any advice, any expertise that you hear tonight, remember, it's up to you to access the care that you feel is best for you in your journey. And you know, I feel like every time I talk to somebody in these webinars, I glean something. There's some bit of information that helps me. So if anything, our community gets to come together on a mission to heal, to come through topical steroid withdrawals, to raise awareness, and to use every resource there is out there. So thank you, Nina, who will be here tonight as a fellow warrior and patient of Dr. Olivia, and Dr. Olivia for giving us your time. I know that you are super busy as well, so thank you for being with our ITSAN community. I actually got to meet Olivia, or I guess not really meet, but I was actually at the ITSAN conference in Georgia last fall, and so that was my first exposure to Dr. Olivia and your awesome work. So thank you so much for continuing to work with the warriors who are going through topical steroid withdrawal. So just a little background, guys. And also do remember, you are welcome to type in questions. I have them, they kind of stream up. So comment, ask questions, and as much as I can, I will make sure I plug them in to our conversation because we want this to be helpful for you. So if something pops up, make sure you go ahead and write it in there. Dr. Olivia Friedman is a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine at Amethyst Holistic Skin Solutions. She treats patients throughout the US in person and via video conferencing. So don't worry about the distance. And using only Chinese herbal medicine. Outside of the office, Olivia serves as the vice president of the Illinois Society of Acupuncturists and is also one of 2 Illinois delegates to the American Society of Acupuncturists. So we will have her contact information up as well. If you are interested in pursuing more time with Dr. Olivia, you can certainly choose to do that, and we will provide you the information. And then we also have Nina with us. So if you don't know Nina, Nina, we'll post your Facebook. Well, I guess it's just your name, but we'll go ahead and put it on there so people can.
Okay.
If you're taking friends, you can.
Yeah.
If Nina's someone you feel like would be helpful to you.
A few hundred spaces left.
Yeah, I think it's unlimited, right? So we'll put that up there as well. And Nina, I'm actually having a really hard time getting this attachment to pop up. But if you will just kind of give us Nina, tell us how many years you've been in topical steroid withdrawals. 5 years.
Yeah, so I started on June 14th, 2015. 14. So it's been or 5 years and a few months. I want to put this out there just because I know a lot of people have been saying that that's not the exact time frame if you were on immunosuppressants. So I just want to put it out there that I was on immunosuppressants my second year of TSW. So for about 9 months or so. So I just want to put that out there as well. But other than that, yeah.
And Nina recently has gone back to work full time. Many of you can probably relate that through the process of steroid withdrawals, we go in and out of feeling super functional in life and not. So congratulations, Nina, on getting back to back out in the work field. And somebody just popped on here, Nina, with your name. Somebody else?
Mary, that's a friend of mine.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop your friend's video.
Sorry, I think she clicked on the wrong link that I sent her.
Yeah, that's okay. It's awesome that she's here supporting you. But she can still watch it for sure. So, okay. Okay, we'll do that. Okay, perfect. So, let's go ahead and get started with questions. I know many of you may hear traditional Chinese medicine and just have the very first, most obvious question, which is, what is it? What is Chinese medicine? And give us some relation, Dr. Olivia, what's the difference between Chinese medicine and traditional Western medicine?
Sure. Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest questions that I get and one of the first questions I get. I would say that Chinese medicine approaches skin conditions and all conditions a little bit differently than Western. I would say the Western way that we look at skin is like we kind of categorize, like you have eczema, you have psoriasis, you have whatever. And then we have a number of different drugs that we use to treat them. What doesn't happen in Western medicine is this idea of customization and looking at the person as an individual who not only has this condition, but also has very specific reasons why they have it and why it's presenting the way it is for them. So in Chinese medicine, we spend a lot of time looking at the individual and looking at what are the other contributing factors to making your particular skin condition present the way it is. So we not only look at, what does it look like on your skin, but also like what's going on inside your system and what are all the different systems that are affected as a result of this, because the skin is really just a reflection of what's going on inside of you. So we really look at what is the root cause that's causing all this stuff. So we look at all the systems, we look at, your digestive system. I'll ask a ton of questions about, things about your emotional, psychological state, as well as, your stress levels, your diet, and all these different kinds of things, in addition to what else is going on with you physically. And from that, we sort of figure out how to actually treat you. The other thing that's a little different is we have a lot of different patterns that we look at each of these conditions. Like for example, in eczema, we don't just say you have eczema, you have one of these 7 patterns. And so once we kind of figure out from asking all of these questions what pattern you are, then we ask all these additional questions to find out like why it's going on with you. So it's a much more individualized way of looking at medicine and looking at the body and looking at the person. And it's also a much more holistic way of treating, because we look at what is that root cause that's causing all of these symptoms, instead of let's take a medicine and try to address each symptom. I hope that makes sense.
It makes sense to me, for sure. So kind of give us a background in we have many different kinds of doctors come onto our webinars and offer us support, but like, where did topical steroid withdrawals enter your practice? At what point? And how do you feel about it compared to something like eczema? Because there are some warriors who never had eczema. They started using steroids and now they have this skin condition. So where did your experience begin, and how much experience, and like I guess if I could just ask it very bluntly, what do you believe about topical steroid withdrawals? Because we have a lot of medical professionals out there who just don't believe it's steroid induced. So I'm just curious how you differentiate between eczema, topical steroid withdrawals and what's your experience with it?
Yeah, so what's really interesting is that in Chinese medicine, again, we don't necessarily just look at what is the name of the condition. We look at how is it expressed in the body. And, you know, even thousands of years ago, they figured out there is this condition where the skin actually erupts and has like this full body erythema and has like all these other symptoms that are basically what happens when somebody has topical steroid withdrawal. And so it was really interesting to me because I started seeing more and more of these people, and they were already, you know, these patterns that I had been familiar with. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is where we start using these particular formulas and stuff. So it was definitely something that was observed very early on, that when you take certain types of things, and probably back then, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, it wasn't a steroid, obviously, but it was this idea of taking something that is causing the system to really overreact and to go into this place that it's so unnatural for them. So I think as time's gone on, we've had a lot of different kinds of medicines that do that exact same thing. And I think topical steroid withdrawal, I mean, the steroids kind of like provoke this whole system to happen. A lot of it's because you're kind of shutting down a lot of mechanisms for a long time, and then suddenly your body has to kind of spring back and deal with that. So it's kind of that same idea and that same mechanism. So it's not a foreign idea in Chinese medicine at all. And what I think is really interesting is that it was something that was observed thousands and thousands of years ago. So, you know, I don't think it's just related to, you know, the current state of affairs in terms of specific medicines. Like, I think a lot of medicines sort of bring about a similar reaction. It's just that the one that we know about right now really well is the steroids. I'm seeing it with a lot of other medicines as well. It's very interesting to me because there's a lot of new medicines out, and most people come to me when a lot of things have failed them. And so I see a lot of people who have reacted to medicines in a very, very negative way. And so these kinds of things keep coming up. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. You know, not to get off topic, but just the idea of other medicines. I was reading an article today that one of the TSW Warriors posted about steroid-induced, and it was more like prednisone oral, but steroid-induced diabetes. So I think the idea of all these drugs we're using, they're not always working with our body in the best way. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit on some questions just because you went there. And then Nina, I want to ask you something, but since you're kind of talking about, you're seeing this with different medications, I'm curious with your regimen, when people come to you, if somebody watching tonight comes to you, Dr. Olivia, going through steroid withdrawals, what is your typical, is there a typical regimen that everybody gets? Or like you said, you look at each person individually, but what about other prescriptions? Is that something that you ever give out, like Dupixent, immunosuppressants? Do you taper off of steroids? Like how does the process work if somebody comes to you brand new tomorrow and says, hey, I watched the webinar and I'm going through this, what will you do? What do you offer?
I treat people at all different parts and times of their process. There are some people who come to me and they're on Dupixent. There are some people who come to me and they're on immunosuppressants. There's some people who are on steroids, and there's some people who are not on anything. They all come to me at different times, and depending on what's going on with them and what their reactions are, you know, I kind of work with whatever I've got. It is ideal if I can work with somebody who's not on something else, only because then I can tell exactly how the herbs are working with them. But let's be honest. I mean, when you have something like TSW, you're going to do whatever is going to make you feel better right now. So if you need to take something to like get over this flare, then I say go do it, you know, because we need to take care of the immediate, and we also need to take care of the long term. So the herbs are definitely going to help for the long term. But it's going to take a little bit of time. So I definitely work with Western doctors lots of times. There's a doctor here in Chicago, Dr. Peter Leo, that I think a lot of people know. We work together quite a bit on patients because there are definitely some people who need something for the immediate, maybe some gabapentin, maybe some, you know, steroid or something like that, just to deal with what's going on right now. But on the same note, they know that this is not a forever remedy and they need something that's going to help them in a longer term, and that's when they turn to me for the herbs. So I get people in very different places in their healing process, and so I take everybody where they're at and we go from there.
Okay, great. I think that's probably going to bring comfort to a lot of people for different reasons. For those who are cold turkey and doing this without anything and refuse to ever take a prescription again, but also for those who have had to live with this and find other ways to cope. So I appreciate that very much, and I think most of our community will as well. So Nina, in 5 years, tell us how long you've been working with Dr. Olivia, and can you give us kind of give the rest of your fellow people out here, what has been the greatest difference? And Dr. Olivia, I just have to say, thanks for bringing a patient with you, like Nina and the doctor together. I think we're so used to having doctors telling us how this all works, and then we sit here as the person, the sufferer going through it, and we're like, that's not how it works. So I love that you're together, because Dr. Olivia is going to tell us one thing, and Nina's sitting right there, so she's going to tell us what her actual experience is like. So Nina, compared to the past 5 years, kind of give us a rundown of like what you tried and why did you end up in Dr. Olivia's space, and what has happened so far? What's your experience been like?
Okay, so at the end of last year in 2018, Kelly Barta actually came to me and kind of told me about her experience and that it was really helping, and she was really recommending it to me, and it took me a few months to actually decide to do it, because there is so much fear in the TSW community, understandably so. So, you know, I was afraid because we've seen in the past where there were steroids in certain Chinese medicine products. I was scared, admittedly, because, you know, we get so almost to the point of paranoia when we're going through this of what we're putting into our bodies. But I kind of just had a gut feeling and thought, you know, I really have nothing to lose. I've been, you know, suffering for such a long time that I haven't had a life in 5 years at all. So I started in January, or right at the beginning of January of this year. So it's been about 8 months now with Olivia. And the first couple months were kind of rough because it does take, you know, a while for it to work. It's not immediate. It's not going to, you know, cure you overnight. It takes time. It takes dedication. It takes, if you want to do it, you have to be all in.
What does do it mean? Like, what are you doing? Are you drinking something, eating something?
So my regimen, basically, I get a little, I can actually show them. So the typical regimen, it is very individual, like Olivia said. So the formulas change very often, sometimes even weekly or bi-weekly, depending on what's going on. So the most amazing thing to me about Chinese medicine is the fact that it's so individual. And the other thing is also that I have Olivia as, like, we work as a team. You know, it's not like going into a Western doctor's office and just sitting there for 5 minutes and they give you a prescription and you leave. It's nothing like that. She actually, you know, takes time to find out everything about you, everything that's going on about you, literally everything, you know. And there's the emotional support part of it, where if I email her, she emails me back within half an hour, you know, and that's very comforting to us who, I've never experienced that in my life before with a practitioner, with any doctor, you know. So to me, that was a huge factor. But back to basically what the regimen is. So Olivia basically prescribes herbs. They come in a little vacuum pack, like sealed like this. Okay. And you drink this twice a day. So once in the morning and once at night. It's a combination of herbs, different dosages, different herbs every time that she comes up with that are needed at the time. And then a few months into it, once my skin was kind of starting to settle down and wasn't as raw, then I started to use topicals as well, which I was actually very nervous about the topicals just because of, again, the past experiences. But I've had nothing but great results so far. So I'm just like over the moon that I finally found something that is actually making a difference, because I've tried everything under the sun and nothing was ever working. So,
Is this like, how long did it take, I guess, before you started to see results? And I'm also wondering, because we know the skin, the flare that we're seeing is like one symptom of the entire condition. But, and Dr. Olivia, maybe you can answer this too. Nina, I want to know, how soon did you start to see results? And I don't just mean like the skin was healed, but results like maybe energy or, anxiety going down, or, any of that. Because there's so much more, the itch being reduced, so much more than just what it looks like. So when did you start to feel some results?
So that's the very complicated thing about TCM that's very hard to explain, especially in the case, I think, of TSW, because TSW is so complicated and unknown. It fluctuates a lot. So we kind of have to work on different things at different times. So I could, my face could be great, and then my arm might flare up. So then we have to, take care of the arm. And then if we take care of that, something else might flare up. So I don't have like a definite answer on how long it took. I know that within like 2 to 3 months, I was already seeing results on my skin. When I first started, my entire arm was completely, like, I had a full red sleeve, completely raw, completely oozing. So that obviously took a while to heal. I would say in the last, I don't know, like the last 3-4 months have been probably like the most crucial, where I really started to see a change even in my anxiety, like less restlessness, less getting hot. I mean, I'm one of those people that I have a lot of heat in my body, so I'm constantly hot and sweating. So there's been, a lot of different benefits. Like you said, it's not just skin. I can sleep better. I'm working full time now, which is like crazy for me. So, but it is very individual, because it just fluctuates so much. So, and it, like I said, it does take time. It's not, like a quick fix.
So what else, Nina, goes into that? So you drink the drink 2 times a day. You're using some topical creams. What about diet overall? Did that have to adjust at all, or?
In my case, Olivia can touch on that as well, what she thinks about diet. But in my case, when you first start working with Olivia, she has you fill out a very detailed intake form that also includes diet and things like that. And from what she saw with mine, she was fine with it and said to just kind of continue doing the same thing that I was doing, that everything was okay. So I didn't have to change anything. But I do already eat pretty clean, and like no sugar, no processed foods, stuff like that. So
Okay, I was gonna say, if you just say you don't have to change everything, all around the room right now, people are going, woo! But if you're not eating sugar anyways, I know that sugar in particular.
I do eat a little bit of sugar, but like low amounts.
Hey, none of us are perfect.
Okay.
I would say, I don't know that I necessarily subscribe to like, you absolutely have one kind of diet in order to live in this world. And I think that, all of our bodies kind of respond to different diets differently. Now, of course, if you're going to eat 100 Twinkies a day, I probably will have a little bit of an issue with, but I think that for the most part, I really try not to make people not eat things. I think that if you have an allergy to something, you will probably know that. If you have a intolerance to something, you will probably know that. And you probably are already staying away from those things. But I have not really found a lot of triggers in terms of food aside from those kinds of things, in which case I'm kind of like, all right, let's just eat how we normally eat, and like, let's just treat the way we need to with the medicine. And, there are a few instances where I do feel like the diet is a problem and it's contributing to the issue. Again, like the extremes that I was mentioning about the Twinkies and whatnot, or someone who's like, doing a ton of alcohol or a ton of whatever. But I mean, I think you kind of know who you are if you're one of those people. But again, I don't think most of the time, I would say 9 out of 10 people, I'm not going to change your diet. I think that, we can work with what you're doing.
Okay, very good. I know a lot of people talk about, sugar making them feel itchier, and my own personal experience, that was the case. But I think anybody who's going through TSW, if you can figure out what's making it worse, there's like no question in disciplining yourself to stop. Like, you know, I remember saying to many doctors, I'll do anything.
Right.
But at the same time in TSW, and we talked about this, I think last time, our bodies are pretty much allergic and sensitive, not allergic, but sensitive to everything.
Hypersensitive.
We're in TSW. So it's like, if I were to stay away from everything that made me potentially sensitive, I wouldn't be consuming anything, you know, so.
Or going out in the air, or
right.
or stressing. Yeah.
My general rule in life and everything is moderation and balance. So I think that applies here too.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, it's good to hear, because I think some things get so strict and we're already struggling so much that it's really hard when you put the pressure and the guilt on of more stuff. So, Dr. Olivia, will you talk to us a little bit about, I have come to a point, I'm almost 6 years in September 26th. It'll be my 6-year anniversary, Nina. So I'm just a year ahead of you. And this summer I had some huge transitions in life. So I'm wondering, Dr. Olivia, like, I feel like I go between, like, I have made the statement I'm 100% healed. And then all of a sudden in July, I moved across the country. My kids are, you know, all spread out now between schools and different things. Everything has changed. And in July, I found myself I was starting to have that panic mode of like, oh my gosh, it's almost like ooze again. I'm almost like, you know, where I was thinking like, what's happening here? And it was so funny because I'm in a new home, in a new state. And so I was talking to the ITSAN board actually on a board meeting one day. And I said, I think I'm allergic to my mattress or the trees and Rochelle, our treasurer, looked at me and she goes, Molly, you're just in a latent flare. Like, it's a flare. Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about, you know, like, how could you help someone like me where I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on this? It's got to be stress. I mean, even good stress, because then we went to the ocean for 1 week and I cleared up and came back and it kind of came back again. So, and now I'm clearing up again, but like, what is that? Is that TSW still? Is this eczema? Is this like, what would you say? And could you help something when it's just a temporary thing now? I don't flare constantly, but I definitely have temporary moments of distress.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as Nina was mentioning before, the emotional psychological component of it is a huge thing in TCM. And I mean, I think it's kind of overlooked a lot of times in the Western model, but it's a huge component in TCM. And that's why I asked so many questions about how is everything going and where are you in life and all that kind of stuff. To make it really simple, think of it this way, like every single time you're in a stressful situation, you're basically generating a lot of heat inside of your body. And you're then therefore allowing that mechanism for inflammation to start flaring up again, which then allows your skin to start reacting again, right? So people who are more prone to issues with their skin barrier are necessarily going to notice when stress comes about, like things are going to change because that heat is building up again. The other thing you can think about in terms of the way we look at things in Chinese medicine is your skin is really the one thing that separates you from the rest of the world, right? And so if you have a barrier that's compromised, like you're really going to have a tough time trying to like keep things in and out, right? And if you have all this emotional stuff that's going inside of you, it's going to be really difficult to like, you know, handle it, process it, whatnot. And if your skin is kind of not in a good place, it'll be really difficult to do that, right? So I definitely find that one of the things that we look at in Chinese medicine is that lots of times we say that, or actually, let me back up a minute. In Western medicine, lots of times we go, all right, we have this condition, it's making us upset because now we look this certain way, and then that makes us feel bad, and so then we have this negative mood. But in Chinese medicine, we kind of say, no, we have this skin condition, and that's actually causing emotions to come up. And that is actually making us have a lot of different things happen to us, and they come with the skin condition. So it's a little bit different. In Western medicine, we look at it as like we're reacting to what's happening to us. And in Chinese medicine, we're saying, no, the deeper this condition goes into your system, the more it's going to affect your emotions. So it's a little bit more, yeah. So as a result,
Like, hold on. That's like a perspective shift, because what I just explained to you was stress leads to skin. And you're saying that in Chinese medicine, skin leads to stress, anxiety, worry,
yeah.
depression.
I mean, I think you probably see that in your community, right? I mean, the longer you've been in this condition, like the more it starts to downward spiral in your mind and all these kinds of things. And a lot of people say, well, no, it's because, you know, I'm responding to the fact that like I don't look good and I feel bad about myself or whatever. But like, no, in Chinese medicine, we're like, no, see, a lot of that stuff is happening because of your condition. And if I can get that stuff to alleviate, you won't feel so much. And I think that's one of the things that really showed up with Nina. Like when we first started working together, I remember you were like in this really dark place, and you had like really low energy. And when we first started working together, I was like, okay, you know, I think if we can like get rid of some of this heat and we can start like moving stuff out, like her energy level would start to come up again, right? And I think that's something that happened. Like I started seeing like this sparkle in her eye again, you know. I mean, maybe that's a small thing, but like
No, it's huge.
that desire,
It was huge for me too.
right? That desire for life, right? That desire to want to get out and do things again. And I think that's one of the hugest, you know, transitions that you
It was,
right?
because when I first started with Olivia, I'm just gonna be flat out honest. I was suicidal at that point. That's how bad I was. So she actually came to see me for to meet up with me. She came to my house to take my first dose when I got these little vacuum packs, and we just kind of talked a little bit. And it was awesome meeting her in person too, you know, and just honestly, she always asks you, you know, how's life going? Like, how are you doing emotionally? How are you doing, you know, mentally? Because it's not only physical, the stuff that she asks, which is really important. And that is definitely one of the things that happened with me. The first few years of TSW, I was very positive and like, you know, I was like, I'm going to heal, you know, I got this. And then right before I started working with Olivia for, I don't know, 6 months or so, I was in such a dark place that I was almost admitted into a psych inpatient again for like the 5th time. But after starting to kind of work with her and just having faith and patience, it started to get better and better and better and better. And now to the point where, you know, I'm working full time and actually going out and like advocating and doing all these things. So changing, you know, my skin, and then also working on the spiritual, mental, and emotional, all of that stuff really just completely like caused a breakthrough for me. Like it wasn't even just like a little change. It was like I just like broke through and just was like, okay, it's time to live. Like it's time to go, like, you know, fight for my life. Like it's time to go work. It's time to go do things. So,
Nina, like that is just.
It makes me emotional thinking about it, but it's like a good emotion just because when I first like had started working and like when I went to go buy my car, I literally just started crying from like relief and, you know, feeling joy finally again for the first time. Sorry, I'm getting emotional now. But,
okay, Nina, first of all, like vulnerable, brave warrior, that it like, thank you for just sharing that part of your story. Like, I'm just like, wow. Because I feel like, Dr. Olivia, what you just said, just like reverse psychology, so much of what we've been going through, which is feeling like we are in control of, we're trying to gain control of this in some way. Like if I wouldn't stress, then my skin would have done this. Or
right.
If I'd eaten that, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Or I knew I put too much on, or I can't work yet because if I start working, my skin's going to get bad. And like the idea that our skin is just our skin and then everything else. And I know what you feel like, Nina, because when my skin is doing good, I'm like, I can run the world.
Right.
All of a sudden in July, when I got this flare, I'm in bed, which maybe I need to rest. My skin is flaring, but I'm like, forget it. I cannot work again. I cannot do things again. Like this isn't going to work. I'm not gonna be able to show up. I won't be able to be all those things, Nina, that you're just like breaking through. So Dr. Olivia, I want to know, is Is it the conversations and the counseling? Do you think that the herbs got in and started doing the work and it starts to help all this breakthrough? Like, where's this come from? Where's this profound, which part is it?
I mean, I would say probably what's a little bit different about seeing someone like me in TCM is like, we do talk about that, right? And it's definitely understood that we kind of have to work through those things too, as well as the physical, right? So, I mean, we do spend a lot of time talking, right?
We do. And I mean, even things like, you know, like when I had that really dark period, you know, I asked Olivia, I was like, you know, I'm thinking about possibly going on antidepressants for a couple months. You know, what do you think? Just to see, just because I was in such a bad place, even though I'm really not a fan of those drugs, but I was just that desperate at the time. But even just simple things like that, you know, I always have, I literally constantly had questions for her at the beginning, because any change that happened, I would get scared. You know, I'm like, oh, is this happening from the formula? Is this happening? You know, at the beginning, it's like you're thinking that everything is happening from what she's giving you, you know, just because it's kind of programmed in our head. But it's just so much different. I just like, it's like comparing apples to oranges, you know, like working with a Western doctor and then a practitioner like this. Like the thing we always say is we work as a team. I have to tell her everything that's going on with me, whether
it's the relationship. I mean, I think that's the word. You actually have a relationship with another human who is seeing you as a human with a heart and a mind and a body and a soul and all those things, and not just a symptom. So, Nina, do you know Felicity Hamill?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, she says, yeah, Nina, but she also asked, she said, Dr. Olivia seems so fabulous. Can we please ship her to, I think she's saying New Zealand. But Felicity, you don't have to ship her because you can contact her. You'll have to work on your time zone and hours, but you can have her too. And Brianna is on here. Hey, Bri. She said,
hi, Felicity.
She said, go, Nina. Yes, Nina. Yay, yay, yay. Okay, so to me, that's it. Like, that was the most profound thing ever, Dr. Olivia, that you just said. And then Nina to sit there, like, this is just like, wow, all around. So one thing I know you are, Dr. Olivia, really focused on acupuncture. So not everybody's going to be near you. Is Nina getting acupuncture? And does that have a place and a space in this protocol and regimen as well? Or is that completely separate?
So that's what confuses people a lot, because in this country, in order to practice Chinese medicine, you have to become an acupuncturist first. And then part of your education actually leads into Oriental medicine. So the acupuncture program is like 2.5 years. And then after that, you do another 2 years in Oriental medicine. And they all sort of layer on top of each other, because everything that you learn is applicable. But so I am trained as an acupuncturist, but I don't actually practice acupuncture in dermatology.
So I don't get acupuncture.
Yeah, okay. Dermatology, it's really much more effective to do herbs. And I'll tell you why. Because most people can't do acupuncture every day. It's just not a viable solution. And on top of that, I would say that you probably can't be as individualized in your treatment as you can with herbal medicine. Herbal medicine, there's like, you know, thousands and thousands of herbs that we can choose from, right? And so for every single situation, I have a whole bunch of different things I can select from, and I can also dose based on how that particular person is responding to things or how they're presenting. With acupuncture, you know, it's the same 360 points that I can use, and I can't change like how strong it's going to be in each point, right? I can change maybe the point prescription, but I feel like I have a lot more flexibility with the herbs. The other thing is that the herbs you take every day, okay? So it's something that you're working on your body all the time. And again, going back to the acupuncture, I mean, nobody can do that every day unless they have their own personal acupuncturist at home that can do this for them, right? So I would say acupuncture is really great in terms of being an adjunctive treatment. I think it can really help with like stress, with anxiety. It can help to calm you more, which actually does help with the inflammation and other things. But I would say the herbs are probably a lot more effective. So I would, if you're gonna see somebody, like see somebody who is specialized, and TCM dermatology, and then does all herbs.
Okay. Well, you do telemedicine, so they can, anybody can access you if they want to, but also I know that you do Chinese medicine specific to dermatology, correct?
Yes.
And not everybody does. So what is the difference, and do they need to find somebody who specializes in dermatology while going through TSW?
So that's a great question. Okay, so in Chinese medicine, they're very similar to Western doctors, where you can have a general practitioner and they will probably do acupuncture and herbs for a whole bunch of different things. And then you can have someone who's a specialist, like just like a dermatologist. Someone who specializes in dermatology has to do an additional couple of years. So on top of the acupuncture and oriental medicine degree, you have to go for another couple of years and get a TCM diploma. And then if you really want to be truly certified, you have to go through the whole exam and actually get certification from passing the exam. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of us in the world right now, and hopefully those numbers are going to change. But those are the people that are probably the best people to see in terms of TSW.
We do have a link of those practitioners to share if
Okay.
you, for you guys too. So there's 129 in the world.
I think there's 152 now, and I think there's like 50 in the United States right now.
So that's actually a pretty small number.
Yeah.
Considering the world population, that's
Right.
a very, very small number.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, definitely take the link and get that up.
Right. I think that's why some of us do telemedicine, because we want to be able to help people since there aren't so many of us.
And that's the other thing. There aren't that many that do telemedicine either. The
Right.
specialists.
And there's actually
also.
a number of them that don't even know what TSW is.
Right.
I think I tried to hook up a couple of people in Australia, and they had called the people in the registry and they didn't.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody has their different areas of expertise. I mean, I think it's very similar to Western medicine. I mean, not all dermatologists are familiar with TSW. Some are.
We know that.
And some are not, the Dr. Leos of the world versus the other people. It's very different, right? And I would say it's the same thing with TCM.
Okay. Good to know. Very helpful. We'll definitely get the link, everybody, so we can put that up there. And then obviously Dr. Olivia's link as well. So, I have a question for you about the herbs and when treatment begins, after you've filled everything out, so you kind of get a good understanding. I'm assuming you explain to your patient what they're getting, what it's supposed to do. One thing with topical steroid withdrawals, it seems like we all kind of find there's no linear healing. So we think we're great, and then all of a sudden, boom, the skin has this big eruption again. With the Chinese medicine, do you see, is that still just the skin doing its thing, or do you see kind of a linear healing that we can count on over time, or will there still be these big dips?
Well, typically what I see, and this is all skin conditions, not just TSW, I will say that, anything that typically flares, it's not that you're going to stop flaring all of a sudden and immediately when you start TCM. What's going to happen is over time, taking the formula consistently, you will find that the flares will be farther and farther apart, and they will be less and less in intensity. So if you're coming to me and your flares are kind of like this, over time, what they should do is start evening out, and they should start being like less and less and less over time.
Which is what I found to be true in my case.
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't just like I'm better. I still flare up. Like today I'm having kind of a crappy skin day, but not anything like I used to, and I can still function. Even if my face gets a little bit red or my arm or whatever, I can still, do the normal things that I couldn't before. So.
And I think one of the things you got to keep in mind is that the reason why the progression is like this is because we are trying to treat the root cause, right? And I kind of liken it to exercise. Like, you can't just go to a gym and do like 5 crunches and go, hey, I got a 6-pack abs now, right? It's one of those things you have to work on over time. And over time, your muscles will actually develop, and your circulatory system will actually start shunting, all those needed nutrients to build those muscles. And your system will bring all those different things and oxygenate and do all those things that it needs to do in order for you to build that 6-pack abs. But you got to be regular about it, right? So I would say Chinese medicine is the same way. It's not going to give you that change right away, but it's changing things over time, and it's changing everything from the inside. And I think like in Western medicine, we're so used to thinking about medicine as being like a cure, that it's got to like change things right away. And I think that's probably true when we talk about things that are like a pathogen, right? Where we're actually killing something, and once it's out of our system, we're fine. But what we forget is that a lot of conditions that we have are not a pathogen. It's actually a whole system that's broken down, and it needs to be rebuilt. And we actually have to take that time to build all of those pieces back together again, so that you're back to stability. And so I think that's the thing that we have to get into our minds, that like, it's a very different thing than the mindset of like, we should be able to like, you know, change things right away. So
it does take patience. That's one of the important things if you get into TCM.
Yeah, but I think we're also looking for lasting change too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think lots of times what happens with a lot of medicines is like, we're looking at a specific mechanism, and we're taking a chemical to actually shut that mechanism down, right? Well, that's good and fine until you stop taking that medicine, and then all of a sudden the mechanism starts up again, or it's created all these other issues, right? So with Chinese medicine, what we're trying to do is not shut something down. What we're trying to do is build things back up again, so that, you know, everything is working the way it's meant to work. And the idea is to get you to a point where you don't need herbs at all, or you don't need medicines at all. And I think in Western medicine, lots of times the idea is, okay, we've got you to be better with this thing, but you're probably going to have to take this thing for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
It's a slightly different way of thinking about medicine.
It's an entirely different way of thinking about medicine. Another question I have for you, Dr. Olivia, how about age? Will you work with children? Is there a too young to start, or?
I've had to ask for that before too.
Yeah. We work with kids as early as, my earliest one was, I think, 4 months old. Yeah, kids oftentimes have eczema like very early on, right? If they have a onset like as an infant, I mean, it usually starts popping up around 4 months old, right? So I treat kids as young as 4 months old, and I've treated people as old as like 95, right? Haven't gotten my centurion yet, but and it's a little bit different because, you know, kids obviously can't handle this. This is a little bit too much for them. So oftentimes we'll kind of bathe them in a formula, and, you know, we'll do that. Or maybe we'll actually use a little, what do you call those? Those tiny little things where you can inject.
A little syringe.
Yeah, one of those plastic syringes, and we can just put a little bit of formula in their mouth. Kids actually respond really quickly because their systems are just fast. And they don't really need very much to get them better, because their body kind of knows how to work and it's ready to do it. So yeah, so I treat kids who are really, really young and everything in between.
Awesome. That's really good news. I know we have a lot of little ones that are needing some extra support for sure. What about, are there any adverse side effects? Like, is anyone ever like allergic to an herb? Or, you know, I think like Nina was saying, I was really hesitant to put on the cream, or, you know, Chinese medicine. I think there can be that idea out there, like it's this weird stuff, and so it's going to taste weird. It could have something else in it, but and it may be stuff that we've never had in our normal diet. So is there anything that people should kind of be aware of, or how do you monitor that, or what have you seen with that?
Okay, well, I think there's two parts to that question. Is like, is it safe, right? And then, you know, how do we know if it's like the right thing for you? Let me take the second one first. I would say that in any medicine, there's always a percentage of people who just don't respond well to it. I think that's fair. So what I usually do is I give people like a 5-day dosage, and that's the smallest amount I can get, to test it out, to see, you know, whether or not this is going to be okay for you. And we typically try to gauge, you know, whether or not that dosage is right for you, because again, it's a very customized medicine, and I'm always looking for cues to see, you know, whether or not I should be adjusting things. I think the one thing that typically happens is people will have like looser bowels at the beginning. And that's not unusual, because if you think about it, if you have a ton of heat in your body, there's only so many ways we can get it out. One is to vent it through your skin, through the pores. Another is to actually throw up, which I don't want to make you do. And another way is to actually defecate or urinate, believe it or not. So to actually have it expel through those other orifices is the way to do it. But what I'm looking for is like, if you're getting really, really serious diarrhea, like that's not a good thing at all. So I definitely try to make sure that that doesn't happen. And if it does, I change the formula right away, or we see whether or not, you know, you're just not a good candidate for herbs, which is a very small percentage of people. I would say because we work so closely together, I'm always going to know like what's going on with you. And if I go through the initial intake and I sense that you're a little bit more sensitive, I'm probably going to back off of things a lot more to make sure that I'm not coming in too strong with the dosage.
Which was kind of the case for me at the beginning.
Yeah, I think we sort of crept
Like
into
I was
things, right?
very sensitive at the beginning, so I had to really ease into, like, my first formula that I got was actually too strong for me, so we had to kind of back up because I was just not at that point in my healing yet.
Yeah.
So,
And then as you got stronger, you were able to
Yeah.
handle more and more. Okay, so then the other part of the question is like, you know, how do you know the herbs are safe? How do you know like this is okay? And I think it really depends on like how conscientious your practitioner is and how important it is for them to work with companies that are doing, you know, the right thing. And one of the things that was really important to me when I opened up my practice was to find a pharmacy that really upheld really good manufacturing processes, and also we're doing a lot of extra testing to make sure that the quality, the amount of things that could possibly pass through were just so high that there's no possibility that anything bad would go through. So one of the reasons why I chose Camo was because they actually make themselves go through like an 11-point check to make sure every single herb that comes in is exactly what it says it is. B, that it's like of the integrity that it's meant to be. You know, oftentimes you can have stuff that's like older and it's not as efficacious. And if it's fresher, then it's better. They also have checkpoints where they make sure that nothing has been doctored with like pesticides or heavy metals or all those kinds of things. And then when they finally get those herbs, they make sure that they are sealed a certain way so there's no possible way that anything could get into them. When they actually get into the place, their operation is incredibly sterile, so there's no possible way that there's anything that's infiltrating into these herbs. And then they actually put themselves through an FDA check, which they're not required to do, but they do it because they feel very strongly that they need to uphold like the highest standards. And so anytime the FDA decides that they want to show up at their door and check things out, they are open to do that. And so that said to me that they're making sure that all the time they are doing the right things. They also make sure that they hire people who are trained in Chinese herbs. They also have a pharmacist on hand as well to make sure that everything's being done properly as well. So because they do all these things, like I felt really good about, you know, working with them. And I also felt like it made more sense for me to work with a company that does this for a living, because then I could ensure that like they're doing their thing while I'm doing mine, instead of trying to do this on my own and like maybe doing it well, maybe not, you know. The other thing is they have so much business, and the reason why this is important is because the change of herbs is very, very frequent. The turnover rate. So as a result, yeah, so the herbs are always fresh. They're always, you know, the most efficacious. And so, you know, if I were to do this myself, I would probably have some herbs that would be on the shelf for a lot longer because I'm not using them all the time. But a company like this who's only doing this, they're coming off the shelf quickly and they're getting new ones in all the time.
And they do ship overseas too, right?
Yeah, they ship all over the world now.
So, I mean, obviously the shipping is going to be more expensive, but just putting that out there.
Right.
And if anyone is interested in other areas.
And what was the name of the company that you sourced from?
So the pharmacy's name is Kamwo, Kamwo. They're located in New York City.
Okay. Just in case people were wondering who they is when you were saying that. A couple of questions before we have to go. Let's see. Felicity asks, hi, Dr. Olivia. If a patient has had a terrible experience with TCM, acupuncture, herbs, and cupping in the past with various practitioners and symptoms worsening rather than improving after 1 year of treatments, do you think that maybe TCM is just not a good fit?
Well, I would say that not all practitioners are equal. And I think you can say that of all doctors and everybody, right? I think that there are some really great practitioners out there in the world, and there are some that probably aren't a good match for you. So I am sorry that you probably met somebody that that gave you such a terrible experience. But I would say that, you know, you kind of have to look for a TCM practitioner much like you would find anything else in life. Like, they have to be the right fit for you. They have to, you know, when you talk to them, they need to make you feel like, you know, you feel safe with them. You feel like they're doing, you know, what you feel like is the right thing with you. And I think it's a trust issue, right?
Yeah, and just to like kind of add my 2 cents to that, if you say ask like, is TCM not a good fit? That's, I mean, there are obviously, you know, everybody's different. Everybody reacts to things differently. But when you're looking at Chinese medicine, they literally have like 1,000 herbs that they're working with. I mean, so pretty much Olivia's working with at least over 300 different herbs. So you can imagine how many different combinations and different things you can come up with those herbs and different dosages and stuff like that. So I want to say that, you know, it could potentially help anyone. I don't think it's necessarily not a good fit. It's just like she said about finding the right person to work with.
I would also say that
there's so many options
yeah.
in TCM.
I would also say, like, if you're not getting results like in the first 3 months, you're probably not at the right place, right? I think you don't necessarily have to be on them for a really long time to see something change. Like, something should change. And I would say 3 months is probably a fair amount of time to start seeing some subtle changes. Like, they may not be, you know, huge and remarkable, but like, I mean, like I said with Nina, like early on, like there definitely was this energy that sort of changed in her in the first 3 months, I would say.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Like, I would say, you know, maybe her skin like has some differences, and maybe that wasn't the most remarkable thing that changed in the first 3 months, but there was something.
Yeah.
And then I think that's what motivated her to keep going, because she was like, well, wait a minute, like, if this is a little bit different now, like what would happen if I would keep going, right? So if you're not seeing that, I would say that's probably not either A, the right person to go to, or B, it's not the right therapy for you.
Okay. One other question I have, do you take insurance? And if not, what would an intake cost appointment? What could people expect?
Yeah, so unfortunately right now in America, and it's America, not other countries actually recognize this, but they don't see Chinese medicine or herbal medicine as something that's should be covered by insurance yet. And we're working on that. But what you can do is you can use a flexible spending account, or you can use a health spending account for your appointments as well as the herbs. I think you just need to have some extra paperwork to show your insurance company, but most of them, you'll have to ask them, but a lot of them will take it.
Okay.
Typically, you know, when people first see me, it's $225 for the initial intake. I offer complimentary consultations as well, because there's a lot of people who don't know anything about Chinese medicine. It's really foreign, and I give them some time to like ask whatever questions they have, or, you know, if they have some questions about their specific situation, like it gives them a chance to do that. So you get 30 minutes for free with me. You can ask any questions you want. It also gives them a chance to get to know me and see whether or not like I feel like
that's a really good thing in my opinion. So the 30-minute like free consultation is awesome, because you just kind of get a feel for, you know, do I feel that this is going to work out? So
yeah,
you know, click. And you have nothing to lose by doing that.
Right. So then the initial intake is usually like 60 minutes, and I send an electronic initial intake form, and you fill all that out, and then we go through line by line so that I know everything that's going on with you, and I really understand like what's contributing to your situation, and I really have a good feel for, you know, everything that's going into this. And then from there, I put together a formula and we start. Like I said, I typically start with a 5-day formula just so that we start with something so I can gauge. And then when we figure out like what works for you, we do longer amounts. So usually like 2 weeks, depending on how often you're having weird things coming up or symptoms like changing. It might be, you might email me and say, Olivia, I'm having a flare, you know, should I do something different? And then maybe we change course. Or, you know, we just stay the course and we go 14 days and then we meet again. So I typically see people about 14 days every couple of weeks. And then those checkups are $100. The herbs themselves cost anywhere between like $70 and $100 a week. And then if you want topicals or we need topicals, I don't always give them. Sometimes, like as Nina was saying before, sometimes at the beginning it's really rough and your skin is just having such a hard time that, you know, topicals are probably just going to make it worse. So I'd stay away from them for a little while, but as your skin gets a little bit better and they can handle it, like we'll add that. And those can be anywhere between, I don't know, $20 and $50 for different size containers.
I have like this one I use
Right.
the most, this pink cream, but I don't remember how much this one is, but this stuff is
But
amazing.
those last a lot longer. I mean, they're not like 2 weeks. You can use them for a
No,
lot longer.
I've had stuff last for a long time.
Yeah.
Like I still have stuff from the beginning of when I first started, so it does last you a while. And if people are really that worried about the topicals and, you know, the ingredients, you don't necessarily have to use them. So you can just use the internal herbs, but it might just not be as fast seeing results without topicals. So I know a lot of people are concerned about topicals, so I just wanted to put that out there. I know I was too. So I always, every time I get anything new, you know, I make sure to patch test it and everything. So
Right.
Yes. Do you do, Nina, do you do where you like Google words that you don't know? If there's ever one, I Google and I'm like, is there steroid in blah, blah, blah?
yeah.
I looked up everything.
I literally, when I first started getting my formulas, I would write down, like I would get the ingredient list and they're all in Chinese. And I would go on Google and just translate it all and like research every single one just to see what it is, you know, and that's kind of how I did it and like kept track of what I was putting in my body. She's ready to become
a practitioner. She knows all the herbs now.
Well, Nina, you can help us.
I've learned a lot.
We have gotten to our 1 hour point, so I don't want to keep you guys any longer. I know, Dr. Olivia, one of the questions was how many TSW patients are you seeing or have you seen? Kind of, you have experience with TSW, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I've been seeing a lot of people in the community. I would say there's just more and more all the time. I don't know what the number is, but it's a large percentage of my patient base.
But you understand us?
I think
she
so.
does. She does.
Yes. So I think that's just a huge, I mean, it like Nina said, you know, we have so much doubt and fear and we don't want to do any more harm. And so I think just having that reassurance is comforting to know when we find an expert in any area that can help us in our community, it's like a gift that we all kind of have to latch onto because so many of us are searching and not finding.
And we're actually finding through working together on my case, we've actually been finding some really interesting things that seem to be a common theme in TSW people. So I'm sure, you know, Olivia will have more information down the line as she keeps working because she's really coming across some things and figuring things out that are much different in TSW people than they are in other skin conditions. So
which is so fascinating.
There's a lot of herbs, for example, that I've tried that she uses for other skin conditions that I just could not handle at TSW. It's like completely opposite. So she has to find ways to supplement them and use different ones. But we've been learning a lot through working with each other. So we both learn a lot that way.
Yeah.
Well, and this is what we need. I mean, we need the relationship between doctors and
absolutely
our patients because we need help. And when we have something like TSW presenting and nobody seems to know why, whenever we can get some more research into whatever that might be, it's helpful.
And even, I mean, I think Olivia mentioned it, but she works with Dr. Leo as well. So it's not like it's this like, you know, division between Western and Eastern.
Right.
It's, you know, everybody's trying to work together. And I think that's really important. So, and I appreciate you guys for all that you're doing as well.
I can sense and feel, thank you, Nina. I can sense and feel, you know, Dr. Olivia, your sincerity and your true, genuine interest in what we're going through. So thank you. And to see the two of you sitting together to me is just, it's the example of what healthcare should look like and what it should feel like. And obviously it works, Nina, because you look amazing. You sound fantastic. And I saw your post about getting a full-time job, and I have to be honest, I was like, wow, okay, like, Nina, I mean, it's really reassuring to everybody. All we want to see is people heal. We want to see that people go through this and get better. So
and they can. And this is, when I started working with Olivia right before, I honestly at that point just didn't even know if I would ever heal, because I've had such bad flares and such awful, we all have, I know, but I just honestly had lost hope. So this just gave me a new sense of hope. And that was the most important thing. Like she said, 3 months in, when I started seeing a little bit more like I was getting better emotionally, mentally, that gave me hope to kind of keep going. So there's a lot of factors to it, but.
Well, let's keep going. I hope that we will stay in touch. ITSAN will stay in touch with both of you. And for anybody that's watching tonight that feels like they just can't get enough and they need more, you can go to Dr. Olivia's website, which is amethystacu.com. So it's AMETHYST.acu.com. We'll post that tomorrow with this recording. And then if you are following Nina's story, it's Nina Ajdin, Ajdin on Facebook. You are, I'm sure, welcome to follow Nina's journey through full healing. So again, before I close every webinar, I just want to remind every single person out there who's going through TSW, who's supporting somebody, who's taking care of somebody that's going through TSW, know that ITSAN is here to help you, support you, to bring more awareness, and hopefully to bring more resources and education to this community. So we appreciate you joining in. We ask that you continue to share your story, bring this to the forefront, because we definitely want to help as many of our fellow warriors as possible. And again, a huge thank you to Dr. Olivia and Nina for being with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
having
Molly.
us.
It's been great.
Yes. And the recording will be on our ITSAN website starting tomorrow.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Good night.
Thank you
Good
so
night.
much. Bye.
Bye.